Have you ever had this feeling when you're in the disc golf pro shop and you're looking at all these different discs and all the different kinds of plastics and you're not sure which one to go with? Do you go with the Star Destroyer? Do you go with the ESP Zeus? What's the difference between pro plastic and cheaper plastic? What's the point of paying more money for a different kind of plastic? Stop me if you've ever had those thoughts before, because by golly, I know I've had those thoughts before. Today's episode of the Chain Clankers Disc Golf Podcast, we bring on Robert McCall, who teaches us not only about what kinds of plastics you should be throwing and the differences between the plastics, but we also learn about his disc golf journey. We learn how he got in with dynamic discs and his career with them, how he became very popular on another podcast, as well as his experience in disc golf and how he went from being a total loser to a total winner. Robert also helps us by teaching us how to improve our forehands. Horatio and I are just two average disc golfers who are constantly looking to get better and be on that grind in order to increase our rating, increase our play, and take strokes off of our game. Today, Robert helps us by bettering our forehand approaches and just approaches in general. How can we get better at securing those birdies, securing those pars? Robert has got it for us, and it can help you today. Let's get to all the good info right now.
Hey everyone, my name is Robert McCall. You're listening to the Chain Clankers Podcast. Let's go.
Welcome in everyone to the Chain Clankers Disc Golf Podcast. I'm your host, Quentin Ferris here, and I'm not joined by Horatio this week, sad face, but it's okay. Unfortunately, some things came up. He was unable to be with us, but we still have a fantastic show for you guys. Today, we're sitting down with Robert McCall. It's so much fun. You've probably heard him before, or maybe know about him before, and we learned so much about him today. Today, he shared his disc golf journey with us, how he went from losing by 20 strokes to his buddies to becoming one of the best disc golfers in his area, being able to be 1,000 rated. His very first tournament, your jaw's going to drop when you hear his rating after his first tournament. It is so much fun. We talk about how he got involved in dynamic disc, his career there, and what that kind of looked like, what his role looked like. And if you're somebody who's asking yourself, what kind of plastic should I be throwing? This is a great episode for you. Robert is so smart. Robert talks about how different plastic types will impact your discs, as well as we talk about how the wind could potentially impact your flights and those kinds of things. And you're going to want to make sure you stay tuned through the end. He's got some fire tips when it comes to upshots that just make so much sense after you hear him. You're going to be like, duh, of course. Why did I not think of that? But they're so good, and anyone can take advantage of them. As well as we've got an awesome hot take discussion, and you're going to want to make sure you comment down below who you think. I'm going to end it there. Make sure you comment, listen all the way through, comment down below your thoughts on the hot take. I'd be really interested to hear what you have to say there. Again, huge thanks to our sponsors of today's episode, Disc Dot, Upper Park, and OTB discs. If you're looking to improve your putting, if you're looking for a better bag, or if you're looking for the right discs for you, check out our links in the description below. You can save yourself some money or get some free shipping, and it does help us. So remember that when you support our sponsors, you support our show. Thank you guys for following, subscribing. Thank you for leaving the like ratings on the YouTube videos and rating us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It's official. Spotify has the lead. The first platform that gets to 100 ratings and reviews, we are going to be doing a giveaway. And if it goes well, we might just give the other one a giveaway as well. So make sure you're getting those ratings and reviews. And something that's fun, I'm going to challenge you guys. Before we get to the interview, I'm going to challenge you. Share this episode with 3 of your friends, and then ask them to share this episode with 3 of their friends. And I just want to see who will be able to take advantage of the tips in this episode, who will be commenting about the hot take. I'm interested to hear what everyone's opinions are, and we'd like to get a big giant group discussion going. So make sure you guys do that. Thank you guys so much for all your support. Let's go ahead and let's get Robert on. All righty, everyone. Let's welcome in one of the best voices in disc golf and one of the best personalities in disc golf. Robert McCall, how are we doing tonight, man?
Yeah, I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Very, very good. Super excited to talk to you. You know, you and Bobby, who we had on earlier, I remember first getting into disc golf, checking your guys' podcasts out. You know, you guys were an inspiration for us kind of starting our show as well. So always glad to be able to get to connect with you guys and talk to you guys and learn a little bit more about you. So what have you been doing lately? I know you're down in Texas. How's it been for you down there this winter?
Yeah, man, things have been good. Obviously the winters in Texas are a lot milder than the ones in Kansas, and we're pleased about that. It's been kind of unseasonably warm this summer, which once again works fine for me. Because I have a 17-month-old son named Owen, and he takes a lot of our time, and so we don't get to do quite as much disc golf and free time stuff like I used to. But I've gotten to play a little bit here and there. Still have some local favorites that I've gotten to play, which has been cool. Yeah, so life is good for us. We're down here just south of Austin. I told you before, Quentin, I'm just starting a new job. And so onboarding with that means I really don't have a lot of disc golf time, but that'll change, once I get everything sorted out. So yeah, things are good, man. Can't complain.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I've heard you're one hell of a pickleball player.
I love
let's
the
talk about
pickleball,
that
man.
a little bit.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. So we got into I took a pickleball class in college. It was with, wooden paddles, and there's a couple of tennis players in my class. And so they were sick, and like, you're never going to beat them. But it was fun, and I just never thought about it again. Right. So then in Emporia, there's a group that played locally, and some of our friends invited us out, or I guess originally invited me out. And I was like, man, this is going to be so boring. Like, because I've driven by before. It's like people 40 plus, 50 plus, even 60 plus years old, just, hitting it around. I was like, man, this is not even going to be that fun, but I'll go just to hang out with my friend. And I got worked so hard because like doubles pickleball, when you're playing at the level that these people play at, is you want to get to the net, and then you hit the ball as kind of low over the net as you can, and as unattackable of a way as you can. And so that if somebody pops it up, then you just kind of slam it. So they would do that. They just barely hit it over, and you're like, whatever. So you just, hit it over, and then you just pop it up, and then they slam you. I mean, 60-year-old women just smoke you with the ball, and then like just tap their partner's paddle and walk back. And so I was like, it was awesome. I loved it from day one. I had a blast. So yeah, we've been playing a lot of that. And there's a brand that we've aligned with, who are good people, who we actually got into meeting because they knew about disc golf. And so yeah, I've made a lot of friends that way, and it's just really fun to get out and do something that's like, man, if you win, awesome, and if you don't, it's pickleball. It's fine. So it's a blast, man. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I definitely played a little bit in high school. We had this but this class called like all sports or something along those lines. And you'd play, 1 week of football, 1 week of basketball, volleyball, and it would keep going through. Man, every time we got to badminton and pickleball, I was the baddest dude in the gym.
That's what I'm talking about.
And it was, so much fun. And I finally convinced Horatio, who unfortunately was unable to be here with us this episode, I finally convinced him to go out and play, because my fiance and I, we'd always go play tennis way back before we got into disc golf. It'd be 110 degrees. We'd be out, the only ones out there on the tennis court getting it. And she played a little bit of tennis, and I played baseball. So for the first couple months, it was tough for me to not just hit it over the fence the entire time, because I just wanted to hit them dingers. But nonetheless, we kind of, I got them into pickleball a little bit. And the last time we played, I had her and Horatio against myself, and it was a murder. It was not good, because I was absolutely dominating him. I mean, I can't remember what the score goes to. Maybe it's like 10 or 12 or something like that. But
11.
Yeah, 11. There you go. There was a hot minute where I think we went 2 or 3 games without them getting a point. I'm looking forward to getting out there. And it's really cool because, I understand this is the disc golf podcast. Y'all came here for disc golf. We'll get to it in 1 second. But pickleball is a lot like disc golf in the fact that I feel like it's growing so exponentially right now, especially, unfortunately with the COVID growth, but good for the sport. Pickleball is growing at such a fast rate, same thing as disc golf. So it's kind of interesting to see those disc golfers also getting into pickleball. And I feel like it's a nice outlet to have a little bit of teamwork, and you don't have to walk 3 miles. Sure, you're maybe running a little bit, but I think it's awesome. You see a bunch of pros out there doing it. So I'm definitely a big fan.
Oh yeah. Low barrier to entry as far as skill goes. I mean, anyone can go out and just hit the ball. But then, you go to watch a tournament, and the pros are just, they do things that it's how I feel about disc golf when I watch, Ricky and Paul and Eagle throw what they do and put down the scores that they do. Like, we're not playing the same game. Like, we are in theory, but we're not really playing the same game. That's how I feel about watching the pros play pickleball. So it's a cool thing to be able to do for sure.
Yeah. We got some pretty good pros here in town, just disc golf wise.
Mhm.
And every time I watch them, I look at my scorecard on UDisc, and then I look at their scorecard. I'm like, what am I doing wrong?
How did that
Are
happen?
we both playing disc golf right now? I'm confused, but
Yeah.
yeah, man, that's awesome. So let's get on to disc golf a little bit more
Yeah,
then. So
let's.
what was your first instance in disc golf? I know you said you played pickleball or at least took the class in college. When did you first find disc golf?
Right. So I had some friends in high school who really got into it and went to I guess it was Am World Championships at the time and won Am World doubles in intermediate. But the way that they talked about it was like they were the doubles world champions. And of course, none of us knew. So it was like, whoa, this is so awesome. They're world champions in intermediate. Right. So, but anyway, so we went and played, gosh, maybe like 3 or 4 times in high school. I always enjoyed throwing a frisbee, ultimate frisbee, all that stuff. Always enjoyed it, but didn't really get into disc golf that much. I started really playing when a friend of mine in college invited me out to play and said, hey, let's get out there and do this. I was like, great. Yeah, I'll smoke you at it, because I don't remember how old I was, but young and stupid. And he beat me by like 20. I mean, literally handed it to me. More than a stroke a hole. I remember that for sure. And so I was like, you know what? This game is stupid. I don't care about it, but I will play it until I beat you. That's all I care about. And so we stuck with it. And I mean, you know how it is with disc golf. The first time you go out, you're like, dude, this is dumb. I can't make the disc go anywhere that I want to. But once you start to see even a little bit of a flight, you're like, okay, I see. And then it happens again and again, and you gain consistency, and then you fall in love with the flight of a disc. I think it's one of the most aesthetically pleasing things in sports is the full flight of a disc golf disc. And so I fell in love with it. We played all the time. I mean, I got to where I could beat him, a few months later, and then played local tournaments and then some in Texas. And I never really played a ton on the big stage, but that's how I got into it, was really just being uber competitive and just wanted to show my buddy up.
Yeah, absolutely. I know there are plenty of times where I'm out there looking for one sole reason, and that's to beat the dude next to me. I told one of my friends who is still getting into the game, definitely newer. I was like, yeah, me and Horatio, we've been putting some collateral on the line every single round for the last like 10 rounds. So I'm going to need you to put something up. I'll give you a handicap because I'm kind of addicted to this right now.
Heck
so,
yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. So
Yeah, man.
that competitiveness, that competitive nature of wanting to beat your buddy, how does that translate to, this is dumb. I'm just here to beat you. What were you doing to get better to beat him? Because obviously him beating you by 20 strokes, some sort of improvement had to come in there. What was that improvement looking like for you?
Yeah. And at the time, I didn't know that field work was a thing. I mean, I guess you could have guessed, but we just kept playing. We would just go and throw more. And this was in Abilene, Texas. There's a 9-hole course there with 2 different tee pads. Well, now it's an 18, but then it was a 9-hole, and then an 18-hole. And so we would go twice, like play 2 rounds a day. I mean, every day after classes were over. And so, yeah, we just started to get better just from pure reps. There wasn't a lot of, this was 2008. There was not a lot of YouTube instructional content, a little bit, but not much. And so we just kind of improved by watching each other. And then I still remember the first time I saw this guy in Abilene throw. His name's Jerry Kingston, one of my buddies. Definitely older than me, 10 years older than me. So when I was watching this happen, he was in mid 30s, early 40s. And he threw a rock. What I now know as a rock. He threw it just as straight as humanly possible, like split this gap. And I was just like, how did that even happen? Because because all of our flights, even our long ones, were big flexes. And I mean, big, let's put air quotes around that, they're 250 or 280 or whatever. And he was just puring this rock on a rope. And so we watched that happen and we were like, okay, that's possible. I didn't know that was possible, but now I do. And so then we started trying to emulate that and get a little bit better. And over time, we just improved to where our scores dropped. And yeah, that was that. We started being a little bit more competitive with the people in the area as well.
Yeah, absolutely. How did your buddy feel going from beating you by 20 to getting beaten a
Yeah.
couple months? I know if that was me, I'd
Uh,
feel pretty bad about myself.
yeah, he wasn't a big fan. The funny thing is, like, all right, that I'm not trying to like toot my horn or whatever, but this is some of my friends think this about me is that I'm randomly good at weird stuff, right? So like, let's say all of my buddies are sitting down to play a board game. Me and this guy who I was competitive with, we're the two that will usually pick it up the quickest and win or something like that. Um, I don't really think that's true, but it does work out that way sometimes enough to where they make a thing out of it. They're like, oh, of course, Robert and Brady won. They sound stupid when I talk like them, but so we were both that kind of person, and so yeah, we were both very competitive, and after a while, it just became, we were close, and then I started separating out a little bit more. But we still, we traveled to some tournaments together. So never too bad. I mean, we're friends to this day. Um, but yeah, he wasn't stoked the first time it happened because we both want to win for sure.
Yeah, I get that, man. The first time Horatio beat me, I said, "Oh, hoo-hoo, I have to get
Yes.
back in the lab because
Yeah.
this is not going well for me." So let's talk about that transitionary period. When you first started playing tournaments, what division were you playing in?
First tournament I played was advanced. And I didn't know what I needed to do. I had talked with a guy there locally. His name is Santos Montoya. He was a 1,000 rated player there. Um, and he was like, I think you should start an intermediate, just see how it goes. If you play great, great. If not, whatever. And I was like, man, I started looking at intermediate scores and they were, a few over par across the board. And I was like, man, I'm shooting like, 2 or 3 under most of the time that I play this, when I now know is like a fairly short park course. So I was like, I'm just gonna dive in. I'm gonna jump into to advanced. My first tournament was in 2010. Uh, it was in January, really super cold in the DFW area, and I was just more nervous than I've ever been. I remember my first hole, I just yanked a 12-footer. It was like absolute drop in range for us now, and I wasn't within a foot of the chains. I mean, it was rough. So it was a really rough first round, and I totaled my score incorrectly. First round ever. So that round ended up being rated 900 on the number 900. To this day, it's the lowest rated round I've ever had. It was the very first one. So the next round, I was like, well, I'm going to crush this because I played really bad that round and I added my scoring correctly. Well, the next one was 915, which is actually the same rating if you don't calculate your score incorrectly. So yeah, it was just a rough day, but it was a two B tier in a weekend thing that actually DD was running at the time. And the next one I shot like 993, 970 something. So my first rating was 950 ish, 953, somewhere in there. And then I just played a few more advanced tournaments and then saw that I could compete, but I was still making a ton of mistakes and still being kind of at the top of advanced. And I wanted to play with the people who I knew were not going to make mistakes. So I moved up to open pretty quickly. And yeah, that was that. But I started in advance. I would not recommend it unless you've been grinding for a couple of years, as I had at the time. Because in 2008, we were there two times a day, every day. And then this tournament was in 2010. So I'd been at it pretty seriously for a while at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. So then do you think I know you said to not jump right into advance. Do you think that most new players, maybe if it's your first tournament, should you just take that first tournament, play it in rec, kind of see what your rating ends up being and kind of go for there? Or how would you determine where you should sign up?
I mean, I don't think especially if it's a local tournament and there are tournament players around you, I don't think it's a bad idea to ask those players who you play pretty comparable to what division they play. And if you can keep up with them in rec play, when you're just kind of go out there casually, that doesn't mean anything for tournaments, but if that's the division they play in tournaments, then you can have an idea like, all right, I can hang in intermediate, or maybe I'll be toward the bottom of intermediate. Maybe I should start in rec. I don't think there's any shame in just starting in rec unless you have local players that play tournaments who are like, dude, you don't need to do that. You can start in intermediate, you can start in advanced. It's different strokes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I absolutely get that. So let's continue to move forward here. First year playing in some good tournaments, a 950 rating out the gate. That's very, very good.
It was sweet.
Yeah, if I had my first tournament is on March 5th this year that I'll actually have a rating. I finally decided to bite the bullet, and I'll get a gosh darn PDGA membership, I guess. And so if I come out there and shoot a 950 somehow and get that rating with this 25-mile-per-hour wind we're projected, I'm going to have a big head. The next time you guys listen to me, I am going to have a massive head.
Yeah. So you'll come back on here flexing.
For y'all's sake, hope that does not happen. But how do you move forward from that? You know, I feel like a lot of people, especially now, could get a 950 their first tournament. They could be like, this is it, bro. I am A-okay. How do you then be like, I want more? And what is that more? What did you do to achieve that more, that higher rating, that 1,000, that playing pro? How did you achieve that? What was going through your mind? What were you doing?
Yeah, sure. I've always been before I knew that this was what it was called. I've always been a mastery mindset person. So I am more interested in the journey to get to where I want to be than I am the result. Like I know that I'm never going to be the best player in the world, but I can train like I am, and I can try my best to be the best that I can be. And so at the time, after those tournaments, I mean, I was addicted. I was doing it every day. I mean, and every day isn't a joke. You know, there's some people like, yeah, I play every day. No. I was out there, rain or shine, did not matter, just grinding. But it's because it's what I love to do. That's one of the things that I think that some people know about me because of Answer Man, but I'll pick up something new, and either if I'm kind of just mediocre on it, not like I'm bad at it, but if I don't care about it that much, then whatever, it can be a hobby. I'll do it every once in a while. But if I really like something, I will just push and push and push until I've accomplished what I want to, or realize that I'm never going to accomplish what I want to, but I've improved. Right. So for me, that, like, a good example is golf. When we were up in Emporia, a bunch of my friends at DD had been playing golf, traditional golf. I hadn't played hardly at all, but I just wanted to get with it and hang out with those guys. And I started super bad and just decided, like, I'm going to get good at golf. And I was miserable at it for a long time, but just grinded until I wasn't too bad. Like, I got my handicap into single digits. Now it's totally gone because we have a son. But like, that's the sort of stuff that I do. If I'm in on something, I'm in on it, and I will grind until I get to where I want to. So that's what happened in 2010, 2011. I had a ton of free time. So I would hop in my car on the weekend. I'd leave Abilene at 3 a.m. and drive to DFW, to Austin, to Houston, to San Antonio, you name it, and play events on the weekend. A lot of times going and coming back same day, just because it's what I love to do. I love to compete. At that time, my mental game wasn't as strong as it should have been. So I made up for it by just putting myself out there all the time to try and be in the situation where you're forced to improve your mental game and try to win. And so I think starting in 2010, I had a win every year that I played a PDGA tournament. From 10 through 13, I had knee surgery in 13, started playing again in 16, and then had a win up until I think 2020. And it was just because I just put myself out there a ton. And after a while, really started to develop that mental game so that I could be competitive. And being 1,000 rated was always a goal, just because that's what people talked about at the time. If you made 1,000 rated, it was like, wow, you've really made it. And I had played with some 1,000 rated players, saw how good they were, and thought, I want to do that. And so I set my mind to it, and it took, I think I finally got it in late 2012, early 20, somewhere in there. I may have my dates wrong, but something like that. But it took a lot of grinding to get there. But that's just an attitude that I have. If I like something, I'm going to go after it, and I would go after it hard.
I think that's a fantastic attitude to have. And I think if you want to have success in anything, you kind of have to have that attitude to at least some degree. And you could be like me or, someone else out there, a listener, where it's like, hey, man, I physically cannot go to a course every single day. And that's okay, because when you are out there, when you are on the practice field, when you are on the practice green, that is the time to grind. Like you're making up for all that lost time. You know what I'm saying? It's one of those things where I think every night I'm trying to get in at least 200 to 300 putts every single night. Maybe it's not at once, but every single time I'll take the dogs out. Okay, I'll get at least 50 here. Maybe I'll get 100, whatever it is, just kind of keep going. And then to end it, I'll be like, okay, from this spot, I have to make 10 in a row. And because I still kind of stink, I won't hit 10 in a row.
Be out there for a while.
I'll get 8, I'll get 9, 7. Yeah. And so the next thing you know, it's like, wow, I've been out here for an extra 20 minutes trying to get this 10 in a row. And I just was able to put up an extra 100 reps without even thinking about it. I really think practicing without thinking about it is what can almost make you exponentially better. Because for me, when I'm thinking about it and it's on my mind, and I'm practicing, sometimes I'm just not having as much fun. It's almost like a chore. But when you can take that away and you're just doing it to grind, to get better. Yeah, I absolutely, I love that. And I think that's something that everybody can take away, is that you might not be Paul McBeth, Ricky Wysocki, Eagle, Simon, all those dudes, but you can work like them. You can outwork the guy next to you. And I absolutely love that attitude.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you're right. Like I don't think I ever had the physical tools to do what those guys did ever. But I sure as heck grinded like I did, because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be competitive. And I mean, I didn't make very much money playing disc golf in tournaments and stuff, but at that time, a little bit extra here and there was great. And I love that feeling of having the pressure of having something on the line. And so I just did, I played like 20 or 25 tournaments a year at that time, most of them doing that same thing that we talked about. 3 a.m., drive out, play, come back, go back to work on Monday or grad school or whatever it was at the time.
Yeah, and there's a ton of kids out there now. You see Kyle Klein, Gannon Burr, who got second at LVC.
What a weekend.
Oh, my gosh. And, you see all these kids out here who are on that grind. We've got a local here, Nolan Ranter. He decided he was going to graduate high school early, so that way he can get out there and continue to grind. And if you really are serious and you're listening to this show and you're like, I want to be the next Gannon, I want to go pro, I want to do these things, it's a grind. Nothing comes easy in your life. And if you want something, you're going to have to work for it. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right.
Yeah. So let's keep moving from here. How do you go from just being this absolute grinder on the course every single day to how do you get to Dynamic Discs? And maybe what were you doing at Dynamic Discs for those who don't know?
Sure. Okay. So ironically, looking back on it, maybe not ironically, but that first tournament that I played in 2010, those 2 back-to-back tournaments were Dynamic Disc tournaments. And I saw all these guys walking around with this logo on their hoodie. Never seen it before. But it said team, and it seemed like the guys who were wearing it, like people kind of flocked to them, and they just seemed like good people across the board. I had never met any of them at the time, but I was like, you know what? I want to be on that team. That'd be cool. Not knowing what I know now. And so I just kind of put that in the back of my mind as, I'd like to be sponsored someday. It'd be cool to be on a team like that. And so worked and won a few tournaments here and there, mostly around Texas, I guess all around Texas. But got to where I was sponsored by Millennium for a bit, and then a local company called Heiserbaum. Heiserbaum is still around or maybe sold or something like that, but this was a different iteration of it, with different founders, quite a while ago. So got sponsored by them and had friends who were sponsored by Dynamic Discs for some time. Dixon Jowers is still with them, as is Miles Seaborn. I saw Miles at a bunch of Texas tournaments back then, and Dixon and I became friends because at the time we were both in full-time youth ministry. And so we just had some stuff to relate on. He would stay at my house when he would come for tournaments. I would stay at his, and so on. So we related on that. And then one day he was just like, "Hey, did you ever throw our discs?" They had just come out with discs. I guess this would have been late. We were talking about this late 2012. So, I mean, I hadn't really thought about it a whole lot, but I always wanted to be on the team, and that's what they were all doing. So I threw some of them and liked them, and went through that process and got sponsored by them early 2013, which was like, honestly, to me, felt like I had accomplished a huge goal that I had wanted to. Big fan of Rusco and the DD family and all that. So it was just like, it was really a dream come true to make that. Then I tore my meniscus in 2013, playing disc golf. Unfortunately, I planted in mud. My body turned, my foot just didn't, it didn't release like it's supposed to. And so, had surgeries that kept me out for 2 years, and it was brutal. Not a great time, in the McCall household. But DD stuck with me through that time. I went up to GBO during that time. They were still doing the first stadium experience, I think, was in 2015. And so I went up and hung with them there, traveled to their tournaments, and just, helped out, just to say thank you for investing in me. And also, I'm sorry that I can't play disc golf on your behalf right now. And so I was with them, finally started playing tournaments again in 2016. And then in 2017, I was working at a church here in Austin, and it was great. I enjoyed it. But I was looking to get something on my resume that wasn't church work, because I have a bachelor's and master's in church work. So I have credentials to do that again if I wanted to, but I didn't have a whole lot on my resume that wasn't related to working at a church. And I just wanted to switch it up a little bit, to diversify it a little bit. So I made that decision. I was going to start looking for a job outside of the church on a Tuesday, and Rusco called me on a Wednesday, like the next morning, out of the blue. Like, we had talked before. I'd seen him in person. We knew who each other were, but not really about business stuff at all. Called me out of the blue and was like, "Hey, I know that we had just bought a house in Austin." He's like, "Hey, I know you guys just bought a house. You're probably happy there, but we've got this team manager position open. I didn't know if you'd be interested or not, so I just wanted to call." And, the timing was something. I didn't really know what to make of it, but it was at least worth thinking about and looking into. And so my wife and I are both native Texans. Our families are in Texas, but we were just like, look, let's give it a shot. And she was really accommodating to me for that, because she really did not want to move. She would tell that to you as well. I'm not sharing any family secrets or anything. But then our time, so we went up there, and it was an absolute blast. Our time at DD was fantastic. Made some lifelong friends up there. Got to travel to Finland and Sweden and tournaments all over the country. It was awesome. And we came back here because we have a son and our families are here, and we wanted to be back closer to them. But yeah, that whole story of getting to DD was it was kind of crazy, but I think it came at the right time for us, and it was an absolute blast. I had a great time while I was working there.
Yeah, that is so cool. I know if I would have got the call after just buying a house, I would have been like, dude, I literally just bought a house. Come on, man. Like, that must have been such a brutal decision. Honestly, I don't know if I could have done it. Like, obviously awesome job, awesome experience. Man, I don't know if I could have done that. Big props to you for doing that. So
we'd had it for a year.
Okay.
So it was like, we rented it for a couple of years. Mm-hmm. And so it wasn't like we sold it immediately, but you're right. There were a lot of factors that were like, I don't know, but we just went for it, and it was awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Glad you had the support to be able to do that and get that experience. And I think was the correct move to make, and also the correct move to decide to go. I think that says a lot about life, knowing when to hold them and when to fold them. You throw that analogy in there, but yeah, that's so cool. So talking a little bit about that team manager role, what kind of responsibilities were you doing? And let's start with that.
Sure. So when I got brought on for team manager, it was just to take care of DD's sponsored players. And so we had 90 or so on the team at the time. And it was to create relationships with them, make sure that they had what they needed, made sure they were doing what they were supposed to do. And then mix that in with some media obligations as well. Because at that time I had done commentary a couple of times, once for the Worlds in 2016, which was like an absolute accident. It just happened. And then because of that, I got invited to do commentary at the first Disc Golf Pro Tour finale up there in Smuggler's Notch, which, by the way, if you haven't been, sometime go. It's unreal. It's a beautiful place. So I'd had a little experience doing that and just being kind of an on-camera personality. And so going in, we said, it was gonna kind of be 80% team manager, 20% media obligations, talking head, whatever it is. And so it was that for the first little bit. DD and Latitude jointly acquired Westside shortly after that. So I took over direction of that team. That was 30 more people. And then eventually Latitude asked me to do that for them as well. And so that's when it went from team manager to team director. About 220 people who I was responsible for. That came with some more travel, getting to tournaments, meeting people in person, really kind of rubbing shoulders with some of our company's top talent at the time. And so that was what I did for the first 2.5 years. And then after a while, one of the guys I was working with really wanted to kind of take that ship and run. And that was fine with me. I was really enjoying the media and marketing side. And so moved into the role of marketing director for the last almost 2 years, year and a half, something like that, before we left. That was a whole lot more on the media side, but then marketing strategy, reaching the segments that we want to reach, working with the third-party companies that did stuff for us on the advertising side. So a little bit of a shift, but all of it was a blast. I mean, my favorite thing that I did during that time, hands down, was Disc Golf Answer Man. I loved doing the podcast and then getting to do live commentary at GBO, at Worlds. It really opened some doors for me to be able to do that I don't think I'd have had otherwise. And that was just, it's fantastic. That's one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. I could pick your brain all day about marketing and business and stuff. If you let me, Horatio tells me, especially when we do episodes that are more business focused, those are the ones where I actually have to set time markers at the clock to keep moving, because I know I will just sit and stay there. So I'll ask one more question kind of about the story and the journey before we get into a little bit more educational part here. Let's talk about the podcast a little bit. One of the most successful disc golf podcasts out there. Whose idea was it to start it, and kind of why did you guys decide to roll with it? Yeah.
So Bobby started Disc Golf Answer Man of his own accord. This was before he worked at Dynamic Discs. I think he started there in, oh man, I'm going to get my dates wrong. I feel like he started there before they started making discs, or maybe just right after. So 2014, it would have been after then, but he had started Disc Golf Answer Man on his own and had Eric McCabe as his weekly guest. He had done some contract work for DD, filming tournaments and making DVDs and stuff. How funny is it that we don't ever use DVDs anymore? But that was a big thing back then. I've still got some of his DVDs and the Clash DVDs. If you're old school, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, so Bobby started that. He had McCabe on for the longest time, brought it in under the DD umbrella whenever he started working full-time for DD. When I came on full-time, it was going to be kind of as a sub for Eric if he wasn't able to be on the show, because he travels around quite a bit, designing courses, playing tournaments, everything like that. So I subbed for him a few times, just a couple months after I moved there. And it was great, but it was never something that we expected to be permanent. And after a while, when Eric was back, all three of us would be on, and then it just kind of became a thing. Bobby asked if I wanted to do it every week, and I was like, heck yeah, man, it's my favorite thing to do. And Eric comes from a touring pro side, a top level touring professional, and Bobby comes from a very recreational player side. And so I kind of fit in the middle there, leaning toward the touring professional, but I tried to analyze things more for the like the everyman player, the people that'll never play a tournament, but that are better than just your once a month weekend warrior. And that's where I kind of found my niche, is to help analyze things for them, explain concepts that the touring pros understand, but don't really need to verbalize because they just know it. So that's kind of where I fit into Disc Golf Answer Man. Yeah, that was pretty much it.
Yeah, awesome show though. Like I said, that was one of the first ones that I had ever listened to. You guys were great, and definitely when you were gone, there I didn't think it was coming back, and so I'm glad that you guys brought it back. The flow is awesome. You guys got great chemistry. So yeah, that's totally awesome, man. And Eric, if you're
Thanks.
listening, look at my DM. Let's get you on the
Come
show
on.
next, man. Let's
Come
get you on
on.
the show next.
I'll work on him for you.
Yeah, thank you, thank you.
I got you.
I think I'm a little desperate. I've hit him up on Instagram and Facebook with no response.
Yeah,
But
he's bad about notifications. I'll get in his ear for you.
yeah, no, it's all good. It is all good. He's lived in Emporia his whole life, hasn't he? He's like,
yes.
Yeah. He's awesome. Yeah, he's a legend.
Mhm.
Okay, so I've been saving this question for a couple of weeks because I knew we were having you on, and with your background, I thought this would be a really good question that you would probably, just with what you said, be able to explain a lot better than some other guests we've had. So I've had a ton of people in our DMs lately asking about different kinds of plastics. A lot of new players are like, well, what's the difference between this fusion and lucid plastic? Prime, and they just don't understand the differences between the different plastics types. So could you maybe kind of go into a little bit of a detail of what is the difference between the plastics, and what do they mean? What difference does it make anyways?
Sure, man. Okay. Disc golf discs are separated into kind of like 3 groups of plastics: premium plastics, kind of your middle tier plastics, and base plastics. Okay. And if you're listening to this for the first time, probably most of the discs that you have are base plastics. And that's a great place to start. If you have a DX AVR, a Prime Judge, a D Challenger, that's a base plastic. They are really grippy. They're the most affordable discs that you can get, so they're very popular for beginners. But for that grippiness, you trade off durability. So those are going to beat up a little bit more quickly and season in. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I threw a DX Rock from the time it was as overstable as it could be to the time that it was as understable as it could be, and it's useful in every stage. So don't discount a base plastic disc just because it's one of the most affordable ones. You can really find use for those discs at any stage. But that's what base plastics are for. The middle tier plastics are like your pro plastics, the non-premium plastics, but that feel a little bit better than base plastics. They're kind of just a good middle ground. Good grip, not as grippy as the base plastics, but still pretty good. But you do gain some durability in those, and you'll find those in like the $12-13 range. Base plastics you can usually find $8 to $10. Premium plastics are all the ones that pretty much go $15-16 and up. They're intended to be the most durable plastic, which means that they'll retain their flight characteristics for a longer period of time. These are valuable if you're a tournament player, if you're someone who plays a lot, and you don't want to season a new disc into where it was before. If you really just want to trust the flight of a disc from the start, premium plastics are what you want to go for. There are slight variations in premium plastic, like Lucid and Fusion are 2 of DD's plastics. Lucid is see-through, Fusion is not. The flight characteristics on those are very similar in just the plastics. Now, the way that they mold makes them a little different. Like some will have a little bit more dome, some will have a lower parting line. There's a lot of there's no other way to describe it other than nerdy. There's a lot of nerdy stuff you can get into to figure out why a disc is the way that it is based on the shape. But if you're looking at just plastics, the 3 categories are premium, midline, and base plastic, and having some of each is not a bad idea. If you're looking for durability more than anything else, go for a premium plastic. If you're looking for affordability and something that you can work in, go for a baseline. If you want something in the middle, go for the middle one. That's that.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic explanation. And so that kind of would lead me to the question of, well, should I really decide to work in a disc and see it through its life cycle, or should I just buy another disc that does, maybe it goes understable instead of overstable? And, I know if I work that true thin enough, it'll be understable. So like, well, what do you think is maybe best?
Yeah.
Should you really work in with the same kinds of discs and just work them in and understand that, hey, the flight's going to change a little bit. Maybe you pick up another one halfway through so you can get the original flight, or should it just be, I have this premium disc, so it always goes to the left. And then I have this disc, so it always goes to the right, and just not really worry about the durability?
Yeah. Fantastic question. There are kind of two schools of thought on using beat up discs versus new. And it's exactly like you said. If you buy a brand new disc that is already understable, no need to beat a disc up to be understable, right? And that's great. However, discs break in, period. Doesn't matter if you hit a tree, a rock, or you just throw them in a field, they are going to naturally get more understable as you throw them. Because when they hit the ground, creates little microwaves in the rim. Not microwaves, but tiny waves in the rim that decrease the stability of a disc. So you're always going to have your discs beat up. So for me, what I like to do is, sorry, let me go back. So that's one school of thought, is just buy a new disc at that slot every time. Then there are people who take it to the total extreme on the other side, like Nate Doss. If you ever watched him play disc golf, his bag is like Forces, Predators, like a Z Wasp, maybe a couple of Buzzes and Challengers. But his Predators fly like T-Birds or, something really super straight because they're so seasoned in. And Predator is not an understable disc. It's that's a really worked in, overstable fairway driver. So that's kind of far on the extreme side of that. Where I usually live is I will start with a disc that's one stability up from where I would like it to be at the end of its life. So I've got right now, let's say I've got 3 destroyers in the bag. One of them is pretty much brand new. So it's very overstable, very trustworthy. One of them has some season on it, so it's a little bit straighter. And then there's one that's like, it's not flippy necessarily, but it'll turn on, it'll turn if I give it some, right? I don't like to keep a destroyer for that super understable slot because there's a disc that I can start that's pretty straight to beat into that slot, right? So like, here's one for Eric Oakley that we have different philosophies on. When he was at Dynamic Discs, he threw a bunch of different felons for any type of fairway shot, understable, overstable, anything like that. I would never use a felon for anything less stable than a straight shot because it's beat up so much now that that's a unicorn to replace. You are not ever going to replace it. So I try to stay within one stability of where it starts to where I want it to finish. So I could throw like a beat up T-Bird as a turnover disc, but I'm never going to throw a beat up Firebird as a turnover disc. Does that make sense? So one exception to that is a rock. Rocks start off pretty overstable, and my favorite understable mid range of all time is a beat up rock. But otherwise, I try to stay within that one stability difference.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I'm really glad you kind of brought up that unicorn thought, because you'll see dudes throw the disc into the water and they're going in. It don't matter what that water has in it. They are getting that disc back. And I've never really thought about that. I'm kind of sort of doing the same thing that you were kind of talking about with your destroyers. I got some S-Line DD3s that I'm trying to work in. 2 of them are under 170 and one of them's a cloud breaker. So that thing's overstable.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, that's the beefcake. That's the overstable one. And then I've got one that's starting to get more worked in and it's kind of flippy. And then another one that's just pretty much straight. So I can kind of decide what shot shape I want based on that. And I would honestly recommend that. I also think your mental capacity out on the course, like you don't have to think at nearly as much about what you're going to be throwing. If you know, okay, this is what I'm throwing. I want this shot. Okay, this is that disc I'm going to select. So yeah, I'm really interested to hear then, does wind ever impact like what kind of plastic you should choose? Being in Kansas for a hot minute, I know Texas probably has got some nasty winds as well. if it's really windy, should you try to go more for that overstable disc plastic? Should you be reaching for that Fusion X, or should you be going for the Prime, or just, what does that impact your decision at all?
Sure. Um, most of the time I wouldn't switch plastic types just because of the wind, just stabilities. So I'll make sure if it's going to be, 15, 20 miles an hour plus, that's when discs are really affected beyond just, for me, beyond just a flight angle. Like I actually need to use a different disc to accomplish what I want to. So I'll make sure that I have, a Lucid X, or like you said, like a Cloud Breaker, something very overstable for those headwind shots. And then I also make sure, this is counterintuitive, I also make sure I have some extra understable stuff in there too. Because in a tailwind, your normal understable stuff is going to be straight. Well, what happens when you need something to go right in a dead tailwind? It's good to have something that's a little bit more extreme than you're used to. And so I just try and fill out my bag a little bit more. It's rarely changing plastic types. It's just thinking about expanding those stabilities a little bit.
Yeah, that makes sense. So let's talk a little bit more here about a big strength of yours. And, we were talking a little bit before the show. I sent you a little questionnaire, and you were saying that you really got good at upshots and putting, because you're never going to be somebody who's going to mash 500, 600 feet. You're never going to be Garrett Gurthie or Eagle McMahon out there. But being able to get out of trouble, being able to have a good quality upshot, a good quality putt, allows you to stay competitive and allows you to win. And obviously, looking at your career, that worked out because you have been able to win tournaments. You have been able to have success. So I want to sit here on upshots. We've talked a lot about putting lately. We haven't talked about upshots in a long time. What are some key things that go into executing a good upshot?
Nice. Yeah, just like you said, I've thrown over 500 feet like 3 times lifetime, maybe flat ground, maybe once. And that's just like full connection, lucky as you could get. I was just never a big distance thrower. And I knew that about myself. I can still, get out there and put it around 400 or a little bit more. But if you're competing at the top level, that's beans. That's a fairway driver for those guys. Sometimes it's a mid range. So when I was trying to compete, especially at the local level, I spent a ton of time focusing on upshots. I was a pretty good putter. And I, once again, I just grinded, just like you said, just spend hours and hours by the basket. But before I had really worked on my mental game, I love taking the pressure off of myself of needing to be, needing to feel like I super parked it or anything like that. I wanted to work on getting as close as I could so that my putting, even if it wasn't great, I still wasn't stressing about being an extra 50 feet away on my approach. I knew I was going to put it close. So that's what I worked on. What's one of the best tips that I've got for upshots is a lot of people think of upshots as a percentage of their full swing. And I think that's a good way to think about it. But where a lot of people mess up is that they don't follow through fully when they do that. So here's a good example. I'm throwing a 200-foot putter shot. I know that I can throw my putter comfortably without hitting it super hard, let's say 280 feet. Okay. So for me, a 200-foot putter shot, it's going to be like a 65, 70% putter shot. All right. I'm assessing my distance. If you have a Bushnell, I'm a big fan of rangefinders. Some people hate them. I think it's great. If you have information available to you and you can use it, absolutely use it. But I'm going to think, all right, I'm thinking of the percentage of my reach back is the percentage of my shot. So if my 100% reach back will go 280 feet, I'm thinking I want to do a 3/4 reach back. Just be real smooth with it, right? But I still have to follow through fully, because if I do a 70% reach back and a 70% follow through, I'm missing that shot. I'm missing the angle. I'm probably not getting close to the basket. So I meter how far I'm going to throw based on my reach back, and then still hit the follow through with good acceleration. So the disc rips out of my hand. I don't have to do the whole, try and time the release. That's what I think makes for a good upshot. Meter that reach back, but still follow through. That's going to help you the most. and then choose a disc that you can rely on that's in like not the super overstable range, but a little bit more than a straight putter. I love throwing straight putters now, but if I'm wide open in a field, I'm throwing like a classic rock or um, I mean, like the Shield was a really good one because you know it's going to fade left. You don't have to worry about trying to land it flat. Just get your power right, and it'll be pretty forgiving on the right side of the basket as it fades in. So I throw a Champion Classic rock in that spot right now, but I wouldn't recommend that because they're very expensive and very hard to find. And I was very lucky to get one. But something in that same kind of tweener range, slightly overstable putter, that's in a wide open field, that's your up shooter for sure.
Yeah, I really like the percentage reach back, but you still have to follow through. A couple episodes ago, we had Johnny McRae on, and he was talking about that as well. And he was saying, one of the biggest factors in disc golf is you have to follow through. If you don't fully follow through, you're not going to get the flight you want. So you have to get out and you have to feel that follow through. And I completely agree. I've definitely noticed since that episode, even on Upshots, trying to follow through more and just finish the complete throw instead of like stopping halfway after it's left your hand. It's such a better throw. So that's something that I think literally everybody can go out and do right now. So that's such a fantastic tip. Thank you for that. And I know there's somebody out there that right now is so stoked that you said that, because that is something you can do. Not, you can't always be like, make 50-foot putts. Yeah, I kind of stink. Maybe I'm not going to make 50-foot putts, but everybody can follow through. Everybody can throw like that. So that was really good.
Yeah, for sure. You're only increasing your chances of accomplishing what you want to if you follow through. It, just like you said, Johnny McRae is one of the best follower throwers, whatever the correct terminology is, because he throws his body into every shot, every putt, every upshot, every drive, you name it. Throw like that. You'll see some success for sure.
Yeah, big facts. Alrighty. Well, I know we've talked about your career. We've talked about how to get better at upshots, as well as what the different plastic types do to discs. Let's keep this train moving and let's talk about your hot take. Robert, what do you got for us?
Nice. Yeah. When you sent this over, man, I was like, I don't know. I feel like I have a lot of hot takes that I don't want to share with the general public, but here's one that I think if I was going to put money on, that I would say this. I think that this year's MPO World Champion doesn't already have a world title to their name. So take your Paul out of the equation. Yeah. Take your Ricky out of the equation. Barsby, you're not going to win this year. There's some guys at the top who are unbelievable disc golfers, insane disc golfers. However, we finally have some parity in disc golf that we haven't had in years. I mean, over the last 2 or 3, we've seen that happen. And now I think the playing field is as level as it ever has been. So if it's Paul and Ricky specifically against the field, right now I'm taking the field. It's not because those guys suck. It's just that the field is so strong right now. So like Drew Gibson, he could show up any weekend, and it boggles my mind how good he is at throwing a disc. And now that he's putting the way he is, the guy's dangerous. Obviously, Eagle's up there. Calvin is up there. Chris Dickerson is up there. There's just so many legitimate contenders that it's hard to say like, all right, it's a Ricky and Paul battle. They're going to be there, but I think it's going to be somebody new this year.
Yeah, I like that, because we've said it so many times on the podcast. This is probably the golden era of disc golf. This is the levelest it's ever been. Just like you said, this is the most quality competition that there has ever been. You are not going to see somebody like Kenny rattle off 12 world titles. You're not going to see Paul rattle off 5. Ricky, he's got 2 right now. Is he even going to get a third? I think those are legitimate questions you can start asking right now. You can name off 20 dudes that, I can see a legitimate path for them winning the world championship. And then there's another 20 dudes who could pop off on any given weekend and also do that. So it's so, So I got to ask then, who are we putting our money on? Is it Eagle? Is it Vinny? Is it Adam, Kyle, Gannon? After a hot start, is he going to keep it going?
What a weekend, right?
Golly, that kid's awesome.
That was a blast to watch. Okay. Is it Emporia this year? Is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Which is why a lot of people think it's going to be Paul or Rick, because
and honestly, really good bet. Ricky's hungry. and his first world title out there, he was walking on water while he played. I watched it in person from 30 feet away, and he was insane. But if somebody's going to challenge them out there, I'll take, oh man, my head says Eagle, but my heart and what I really want to say, I'll take Vinny.
Yeah.
I want to see Vinny win. That, I think he'd be one of my favorite world title holders. Just his attitude is so great. He's so fun to be around, and his swing is so efficient and then just goes. He's one of my favorite people to watch. So I'll take Vinny.
Out of the like top 10 disc golfers in the world, I think Vinny is definitely, if you don't know who Vinny is, Calvin Heimberg.
Sorry. Yeah.
He is the most underrated. There was a hot stretch last year where I think it was almost dang near 20 tournaments in a row. The dude was inside the top 5 or top 10 or whatever it was, some unreal stat that does not happen. This guy has been so close to winning so many tournaments. If he can continue to just have good putting from circle 2, and I think, absolutely. I think if I had to put my money today, I think I just have to go with Paul or Rick. It's the chalkiest answer out there. I have to go with Paul or Rick because Paul does not lose in Emporia somehow. And this dude, Rick, if the trend continues, when you go to a different team, you win the world championship. So it's got to be Rick this year, I guess. But if I'm going dark horse, I'm going to put my money on Drew Gibson. I think this is his year. That EV7 has completely changed that dude's game. And if he can consistently putt like he has been, it's going to be very, very tough to beat that guy. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. He's really dangerous on the green right now. And that's kind of been his, Achilles heel for the longest time. But yeah, I mean, elite power, elite control. Now that he's making putts, I mean, everyone should watch out.
And he probably has the most swag out on the course. So, I mean,
you're not wrong about that.
You're already lose at that point. So, that's awesome.
You're not wrong about that. And just quick circling back to Calvin. Calvin was one really terrible break on 17's green away from being a major champion at USDGC. So, like, the caliber is there. It really is. I want to see him put it together. And I think it may not be this year. I think it's going to happen, though.
And I could be wrong in saying this, but I feel like he is closer than Eagle is when it comes to getting a major or even a world championship. Right. Yep. I think Eagle is a fantastic disc golfer, but there's more variance in his finishes. And I think a bad hole or two could maybe take him out of the tournament, where Calvin has this attitude that I wish I could have out on the course, where it's almost like something bad happened. Oh, well, I just hit an ace. I'm not even going to smile. Who cares? So I think that mentality is so strong, and he's shown that he can be super consistent. If he puts 2 hot rounds together, absolutely. I think we're close here. And if he wins, everyone circle this episode right here.
That's right.
All right.
You hit the nail on the head super fast. You hit the nail on the head with Eagle. Eagle has the best tools in disc golf, bar none. If you say this is the most physically gifted disc golfer, it's Eagle. Yes. No doubt about it. But you're exactly right. He has a little bit more variance than some of the other top guys. And if it's just a hot weekend, you're just not going to stop him. But he's got to overcome a little bit of adversity to do it. So I'm with you.
And I think the adversity factor is something that's really critical, because we've seen certain guys have to face a little bit of adversity and they can't get off a chase card, where I think we've been able to see Calvin go through adversity and almost win. Literally look at LVC in 2022. Yeah, seriously. The adversity the dude faced and still somehow almost won that tournament. And there's so many other tournaments where you're like, how is this dude possibly coming in on the last day and almost winning this? So I really, really like Calvin, and that would be super cool if he could get it. There's so many guys that just, especially doing this podcast and meeting, that it's like, man, well, I kind of want them to win. Oh, well, I kind of want them to win. So it's almost hard to not be happy at the end of a weekend. Like I'm on team Disc Dot, and so is Gannon. So I'm cheering for Gannon. But also I like Drew and what he does. So I'm sure. So it's so hard. It's almost like you can't lose situation, and you just hope for good disc golf. I mean, you really just hope that Maybe it comes down to a playoff. Maybe it comes down to the last couple holes. You just don't. I think it's boring when you see Eagle win by
Run
10
away.
strokes and it's over before you're even to the 9th hole on the final round. So
yep.
I'll take LVC 2022 over LVC 2021.
Dude, what a fantastic tournament. I'm with you. And I think exactly like you said, no chance that there's not a barn burner at World, and probably every tournament this year. There's just so many people up there that we really are in for some fantastic disc golf this year.
Yeah. And I can't remember last thing. We're getting to the ace round, folks. I promise. But last thing that I want to say on this is I think it might have been on your guys' podcast. I think maybe you and Eric were talking about it, but when Philo on the 18th hole, when Gannon went out of bounds,
yep.
I can't remember exactly how your guys' conversation went, but I completely agree with whoever was saying that was a good shot, because that was the correct shot. If you come up short, you have an opportunity to go out of bounds. And let's say you somehow airball the putt, or it somehow goes over past and then it rolls out of bounds, you lose anyways. He's literally 2 inches away from being able to dunk it in and it's over. And that was the perfect shot. Unlucky break. And they kept going into playoff hole. Eventually it was going to end. Caught a tough break going out of bounds. The sky is the absolute limit for that kid.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And kid's going to win. Yeah. No doubt. It's not if, it's when. Probably this year.
Yeah. I would not be surprised if by 18 he has a major or two. He is the next Eagle. He is the next Paul. He is the next. That dude is bad. And he's still only 16. I'm pretty sure he's still 16.
Yeah,
I feel like he's
bad,
been 16 for like 3 years, but
right.
Golly, he's awesome. Okay.
That dude's bad.
I've said it. We both said last thing. So we're actually going to do it. Let's go to the last segment here, guys. Let's get into the ace round. If you're new to the podcast, these are the same 5 questions that we'd like to ask our guests, learn a little bit more about them, learn how you can compare and contrast between different episodes. And I think this is going to be a good one. So Robert, let's start off with the first question here. You're taking a buddy to buy their first set of discs. What's one putter, mid-range, and driver that you would get for them? The first time going out there.
Okay. Man, I want to like AVRs more than I like the Warden, but I love the Warden. It's my favorite putter. It's a little more overstable than I think a brand new player would want, but that's still what I would get for him. Like a prime Warden, something that'll work in. Good thrower, good putter. That's what I would do. Mid-range, gosh, it's really hard to go wrong with something like a Buzz. It'll teach you how to throw straight. And it's going to be overstable to start, which is good. In the wind, you're not going to have to worry about it. It'll teach you angles. So I'd go with the Buzz. I get a little bit more understable with a fairway driver. I'd probably go with a Leopard. Really underrated fairway driver for anyone who's not at the very top level. Even top level guys still throw it, but man, you can throw straight with a Leopard. You can turn it over, throw it on a hyzer, holds hyzer. So those are the 3 I think I'd pick.
Yeah, those are good. Hot take for everyone. I think the AVR is the most overrated disc in disc golf. I do not like the AVR, but we do not need to get into that.
Okay.
Let's go to our second question here. What is the favorite course you have played and one course you have not played that you want to in the future?
Okay. I think my favorite course that I've played is in Skellefteå, Sweden. It's called Disc Golf Terminalen. It is it has a true par 6 as hole 1. And I didn't think that was possible until I played this hole, and I was like, oh yeah, that's par 6. Just beautifully designed, fair, but very difficult. I mean, I feel like I shot 4 under once, and I was like, I did it like that. I just shredded, for me at least. So it's a beautiful course. One that I would like to play that I haven't had the chance to yet. I'm going to go with 2. They'll be quick. One is brand new, Eagles Crossing. I think I've seen it on video. Looks like one of those future of disc golf type courses. Difficult for the guys right now to overpower, which is a big deal. But you have to have elite distance to compete there. So I think that's going to be awesome. And then the other is just one for fun. I want to play Blue Ribbon Pines. I've never been out there, but I've watched the Clash video where Kale throws in on hole 4 for 2. Just a beautiful looking course. Beautiful trees, nice shot shape. So I'd like to play out there sometime.
I might butcher this, but is that the one with the Kobe basket 8 and 24? Is that course?
I don't know. I don't think so, but that may be a new progression since I've seen it recently. That's very possible.
Yeah, it was either that one. It was something I think up in Minnesota maybe, or something that Kale had designed that, it was right after Kobe had died, that the 8th basket and the 24th basket were Kobe decorated. It looked really cool. I could be very completely wrong. But yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Eagles Crossing is on the bucket list. And in an episode that we had done in the past, we made the argument that the USDGC should be moved from where it's at now, and they should put it at Eagles Crossing. Just saying, awesome. That would be pretty fun. Okay, third question for you. What is one tip that you would give yourself if you could time travel to when you first started getting into disc golf?
I would have started with a less stable disc out of the gate. I saw what my buddy who had been playing for a while was throwing and just wanted to throw that. And it wasn't for me. But the first disc that I learned to throw straight was a Valkyrie, like a beat up star Valkyrie. To barely hyzer flip it to flat and have it go straight. I wish I had known that a little bit earlier, because that would have taught my form a little bit more quickly. And then my second big breakthrough was when I slowed down my run up and thought about accelerating instead of just being fast all the way from reach back to hit, to accelerate slow, and then hit fast. That gave me some extra distance and accuracy as well. So those would be the two things I'd say.
Nice. Yeah, those are really good. Fourth question. What is the favorite memory you have playing disc golf?
Oh man. Playing disc golf. I'm going to go two ways again. Sorry.
No, go for it.
Sorry, listeners.
They love it.
All right. Playing disc golf. I won a tournament in Temple, Texas in a playoff over Mike Oles. And if you're unfamiliar, Mike is a longtime Texas disc golfer, prominent course designer, really nice guy. I like Mike a lot. We tied. We went to 5 playoff holes, maybe 6. I don't remember off the top of my head right now, but I missed a putt for a chance to win at 1, and I'd been putting really well that weekend. But yeah, made some big putts, threw some big shots to stay tied with him. He was a far better player than me at the time. Probably still is, honestly. But our last playoff hole was sitting on a side hill that sloped from high right to low left, which means it received a forehand better than any other shot shape. And I didn't have a good forehand. So I threw a turnover rock, got me to 25 feet above the basket near the top of the hill. Mike was at the bottom of the hill, threw his putt, just missed, but stayed right there. And I just had an absolute death putt. I mean, oblivion below the basket. Definite 3 putt, definitely losing, and just calm my nerves and hit that one for the win. So that's probably my favorite play memory. And then favorite memory in disc golf, period, would just be like just commentating at the World Championships. Anytime I got to do that, just like it's exhilarating. So a little bit different from each side, but those are my favorites for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. The Pro Tour, or not the Pro Tour, but DGN would be doing themselves a favor if they were able to get a guy like you on there. I'm just putting it out there. I'm just saying what the people are saying online. I'm just, hey, I'm just the messenger. Don't shoot me over here. But yeah, I appreciate that. That would be nice. All right. 5th and final question we got for you. What is the biggest mistake you see new players make?
I think getting too many discs too early. A lot of times they get too overstable stuff. That's absolutely true. But man, you don't need more than 3 to start. And then when you go from there, you don't need more than 5. I see, like, I carry a lot of discs right now, but I've thrown a crap ton of discs since I started playing disc golf and understand the nuances of them because I've spent time in the field working with them. If you're new to disc golf, take a lot of the guessing out. Have 12 discs max, an overstable, a neutral, and an understable in each slot from distance, fairway, mid-range, putter. I think you'll be happy that you simplified.
Yeah, that's a good one. We have had a full episode with Joel Freeman on that. If you guys haven't listened to it, definitely check it out. He gives you tips. If you're somebody who like me, I struggled heavily doing this. I was like, no, I have to have my 30 different discs because they do 30 different things. And that's not true. That's really not true. So check that out. He'll help you consolidate your bag, it's a good listen. Robert, thank you so much for your time and coming on here tonight. Where can the people connect with you and continue to follow your journey?
Yeah, sure. So weekly we are live on Disc Golf Answer Man. You can find us on YouTube. Where, pardon me, I'm sorry. We are giving away a bag when we get to 1,000 subscribers there. Haven't had to restart the whole podcast channel, and so gaining some subscribers and all that. But so you can find me weekly there, and then personally, my Instagram is at @JRobertMcCall, and you can find me on Facebook, just Robert McCall. Shoot me a message. I'm happy to connect with listeners, fans, whomever. I love it.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, hey, thanks for coming on again, Robert. It was super fun connecting with you, learning about your journey, and wish you nothing but the best. And hopefully this new job takes off, and maybe we can hear you on World's Commentary or some sort of commentary. I'm just saying, give the DGN your email. Let them know, because it would be so much better.
I'll holler at Jeff and say, hey, look, I haven't been available for a little while. Now I am. We'll see.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be great. Thanks, Robert.
All right, we'll see then.
Thank you for listening to the Chain Clankers podcast. Make sure you follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Chain Clankers, and hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening to us from so you never miss another episode.